Okay, I'm going to read the introduction here. Let me log into my phone. Introduction to Nahum, then we're going to go to Habakkuk. I think these are both very, very short books, so I think we can get them both done here today. Nahum, there we go, introduction. Okay. Luke 12:48 says, For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. Now again, this is post-Jonah, okay? So we've got to keep that in mind because, again, it's another prophecy dealing with Nineveh. And God does not spend a lot of time talking about other nations. But again, he talks to Nineveh. It says, Nineveh had been given the privilege of knowing the one true God. Under Jonah's preaching, this great gentle city had repented. God had graciously stayed his judgment. However, 100 years later, Nahum proclaims the downfall of the same city. The Assyrians have forgotten their revival, have returned to their habits of violence, idolatry, arrogance, and as a result, Babylon will so destroy the city that no trace of it will remain. A prophecy fulfilled in painful detail. The word Nahum means comfort or consolation. The destruction of the capital city of Assyria is a message of comfort and consolation to Judah and all who live in fear of the cruelty of the Assyrians. The title of the book in the Greek and Latin Bibles is Nahum, so Nahum. So interesting. Not unlike a lot of things today, okay? It becomes easy sometimes to repent. Then you go a long ways and suddenly life catches up with you and you completely go backwards, okay? In all my years of ministry, I've seen it happen over and over again. And so it happens. God spares Nineveh with this great miracle to the disappointment of Jonah. And they all turn to God. They all use the word saved. Now they're following the one true God. 100 years later, well, now they're back to their old practices.
Okay, before we get started, the question is this. In the New Testament, right, Jesus went and prophesied to the Jews, right? How come he didn't prophesy to Gentiles also when God did it previously?
Because he came mainly to the Jews, to his own people. After he ascended, and again, there's constant conflict, then Paul was called to go to the Gentiles because mainly he was called just to get his own people. Listen, this is who I am, Yeah, but why?
You don't know.
I don't know, but there were times when Gentiles got saved. I mean, you got Samaritan, you got one with the issue, people who were definitely not Jewish, and but he did minister to them. But his goal was really to reach the Jews. These were the people that were supposed to be serving God, and they weren't. So his goal during his ministry was to reach the Jews, and then train the disciples to go. After that point, remember, they were to go into all the world and preach the gospel. After that point, and so.
I was just wondering, it just seems like, God goes out of his way to tell us about Nineveh, right? And then when Jesus comes along, he says, I'm for the Jews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, can I assume that during the New Testament, well, of course, never mind, answer my own question. But it's interesting how he just came for the Jews and not for the Gentiles, and trained the disciples to go to the Gentiles instead of himself. You know what I mean? But,
Interesting though, yeah, I can't really answer that, but I know he came to reach his own people and then trained the disciples to go out and reach the Gentiles. Yeah, good question.
To me.
Yeah.
One day you'll get to ask.
That's right.
One day.
I was telling Chester, it's not for me to know. My job basically is the salvation of the soul. That's my job.
Okay, Book of Nahum. The burden against Nineveh. The book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. God is jealous and the Lord avenges. The Lord avenges and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries and he reserves wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, great in power. Will not at all acquit the wicked. It's a very important verse right there. He's slow to anger. He has great power. But he's not going to let the wicked off. Okay? The Lord has his way. In the whirlwind, in the storm, the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea, makes it dry, dries up all the rivers. Bashan and Carmel wither. The flower of Lebanon wilts. The mountains quake before him. The hills melt. The earth heaves at his presence. Yes, the world and all who dwell it. Okay, this is what God can do. Okay. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can endure the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who trust in him, but with an overflowing flood, he will make an utter end of its place, and darkness will pursue his enemies. What do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction will not rise up a second time, for while tangled like thorns, and while drunken like drunkards, they shall be devoured like stubble, fully dried. Now, it's interesting, that last part of verse 9, he will make an utter end of it. Affliction will not rise up a second time. So basically what he's saying, this is it. It's like, again, God once again draws the line in the sand. This is not going to happen a second time. Okay, this is the end of it. Verse 11, from you comes forth one who plots evil against the Lord, a wicked counselor. Thus says the Lord, though they are safe, and likewise many, yet in this manner they will be cut down when he passes through. Though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. For now I will break off his yoke from you, and burst your bonds apart. The Lord has given a command concerning you. Your name shall be perpetuated no longer. Out of the house of your gods I will cut off the carved image and molten image. I will dig your grave, for you are vile. Behold, on the mountains, the feet of him who brings good tidings, who proclaims peace. O Judah, keep your appointed feast, perform your vows, for the wicked one shall no more pass through you. He is utterly cut off. So God has made quite a definitive proclamation. This is it. You will be cut off. You will exist no longer. Interesting. Chapter 2. He who scatters has come up before your face. Man the fort, watch the road, strengthen your flanks, fortify your power mightily. For the Lord will restore the excellence of Jacob like the excellence of Israel. For the emptiers have emptied them out and ruined their vine branches. The shields of his mighty men are made red, the valiant men are in scarlet. The chariots come with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the spears are brandished. The chariots rage in the streets, they jostle one another in the broad roads. They seem like torches, they run like lightning. He remembers his worthies. They stumble in their wall. They make haste to their walls. The defense is prepared. The gates of the rivers are open. The palace is dissolved. It is decreed. So shall be led away captive. She shall be led away captive. She shall be brought up. Her maidservant shall lead her as with the voice of doves, beating their breasts. Though Nineveh of old was like a pool of water, now they flee away. Halt, halt, they cry. But no one turns back. Take spoil of silver, take spoil of gold. There is no end of treasure, or wealth, or every desirable prize. She is empty, desolate, and waste. The heart melts, the knees shake, much pain is on every side, and all their faces are drained of color. Where is the dwelling of the lions, and the feeding place of the young lions? Where the lion walked, the lioness, and the lion's cub, and no one made them afraid. The lion tore in pieces enough for his cubs, killed for his lioness, filled his caves with prey, his dens with flesh. Behold, I am against you, saith the Lord of hosts. I will burn your chariots to smoke. The sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall be heard no more. Not exactly pleasing words. Yeah? This is what God says, this is what I'm going to do. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. Chapter 3. Woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. Its victims never departs. The noise of its whip, the noise of rattling wheels, of galloping horses, of clattering chariots, horsemen charged with bright sword and glittering spear. There's a multitude of slain, a great number of bodies, countless corpses. They stumble over the corpses. Because of the multitude of harlotries, of the seductive harlot, the mistress of sorceries, who sells nations through her harlotries, and families through her sorceries. Behold, I am against you, saith the Lord of hosts. I will lift your skirts over your face. I will show the nations your nakedness, and the kingdoms your shame. I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, make you a spectacle. It shall come to pass that all who look upon you will flee from you and say, Nineveh is laid waste. Who will bemoan her? Where shall I seek comforters for you? Are you better than Nahum, that was situated by the river, that had the waters around her, whose rampart was like the sea, whose wall was like the sea? Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was boundless. Put and Lubim were your helpers, yet she was carried away. She went into captivity. Her young children were also dashed to pieces at the head of every street. They cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. You also will be drunk. You will be hidden. You will seek refuge from the enemy. All your strongholds are fig trees with ripened figs. If they are shaken, they fall to the mouth of the eater. Surely, your people in the midst are women. The gates of your land are wide open for your enemies. Fire shall devour the bars of your gates. Draw your water for the siege. Fortify your strongholds. Go into the clay and tread the mortar. Make strong the black kiln. There the fire will devour you. The sword will cut you off. It will eat you up like locust. Make yourself many like the locust. Make yourself many like the swarming locust. You have multiplied your merchants more than the stars of the heaven. The locust plunders and flies away. Your commanders are like swarming locusts, and your captains like great grasshoppers, which camp in the hedges on a cold day. But when the sun rises, they flee away, and the place where they are is not known. Your shepherds slumber, O king of Syria. Your nobles rest in the dust. Your people are scattered in the mountains. No one gathers them. Your injury has no healing. Your wound is severe. All who hear news of you will clap their hands over you, for upon whom has not your wickedness passed continually? Now they're done. Finished. Nineveh no longer exists. And the moral, don't mess with God. I mean, really, you don't mess with God. It's like trying to mess with Israel today. And it just boggles my mind. The world doesn't get it, you know? This morning again, they're talking about Palestinian protesters and this, let us have our land. It's not their land, you know? And people don't get it. You don't anger God's people. Don't anger God. And it's not going to be good for you. And the sad thing is, it's it's going to escalate. It's already started to escalate a little more with Iran attacking, and of course some of the other surrounding countries, Syria and others. And little by little, others may decide to join in, and then we're going to be sitting at a place where we have to decide, do we help them or not? Chances are, the way America's thinking, we probably won't. No. Yeah, we become so passive. It's not our business, but it is our business. And I think prophecy bears that out, that we will sit on the sideline, just kind of watch.
But I've been watching the news, not much lately, but New York Police Department stood up against a bunch of protesters from Palestine. Yeah?
Yeah.
That was good. That's good.
I have a question about the whole, this, look, my question is this. How come we don't hear about the people that in this nation love God? You know what I mean? They turn teeth on, you know what I mean? But we never hear about that. We just hear about the destruction of them.
Yeah.
But why is that? You know, why did God just, throw a little, like, for my people, I got you, you good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but there weren't any left in Nineveh.
That's what I'm asking.
Well, at the point, at this point in time, he's right. There's very few. It's just they're all turning their backs, getting back in idolatry. Judah, Israel, and again, he did mention the fact, Israel and Judah, the fact that they had the same habit. And if you notice, you're right. But even today, okay, I caught the news that it was at Enfield where they're having these drag queen things. And so it got canceled because of the protest. But now they've changed the venue where it's more acceptable. And one of the person in favor of this was a local pastor. Talking about, the need to promote our gay society. And now I'm thinking, and meanwhile you've got these, the Christian people, the parents that are dead set against this, that we don't need our children being taught by transvestites and being taught the gay culture. They use words like unhealthy and unscriptural, immoral, impure, but you got to shut them down. That's not where we are today. We're very progressive. We got to include everybody, and so now it's all right. And what boggles my mind is they have
But not everybody.
Yeah, they got a backlog of parents waiting to get their children into these meetings. Did that boggle your mind? I mean, parents that sick? Oh yes, I want my kids to go listen to transvestites and drag queens and promote homosexuality. All right. You get. It drives me up a wall that people are that stupid.
Maybe Nahum was written to our leaders in Washington.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Yeah, but the point is, the thing about history is it constantly repeats itself. And eventually, something has got to happen. I mean, and you got to think about America. How long is God going to sit there and let this happen to what's supposedly a Christian nation, which we really aren't anymore? Is God going to just sit there and let this go on, or is there going to come a time when God says, okay, that's it, I've had it?
Well,
Here's the line.
It's right in there. The border's open. The
Yeah.
destruction's on its way.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm constantly reminded of the vision of George Washington, and where the angel came and gave him visions of 4 great battles, and the first 3 were fulfilled exactly, and the last one includes an invasion of America and a destruction, which the angel said was needed to bring America back to her knees. That is yet to happen. And it was demonstrated as a vision by this glowing red light that came from the east across the waters into America. And we can sit here and say, well, that sounds like almost like a Muslim invasion. Could very well be. But it's sad to see the way things are going, and especially in the political realm. It's just,
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Election's right around the corner.
Pretty soon,
Yeah.
the rapture's going to happen and we're gone, right?
Peace out.
Peace out. Okay, Habakkuk. Let me let me pull up the introduction to Habakkuk here. Okay, Habakkuk ministers during the death throes of the nation of Judah. Although repeatedly called to repentance, the nation stubbornly refuses to change their sinful ways. We're talking about that, okay? God's people, they don't want to change their ways. Habakkuk, knowing the hard-heartedness of his countrymen, asked God how long this intolerable condition will continue. And God replies that Babylon will be his chastening rod against the nation, an announcement that sends the prophet to his knees. He acknowledges that the just in any generation shall live by faith, not by sight. Habakkuk concludes by praising God's wisdom, even though he does not fully understand God's ways. Habakkuk is an unusual Hebrew name, meaning embrace. Thus, his name probably means one who embraces or clings. At the end of his book, this name becomes appropriate because Habakkuk chooses to cling firmly to God regardless of what happens to his nation. The Greek title in the Septuagint is, I can't even pronounce the word, the Latin title in Vulgate is Habakkuk. So again, God is prophesying against his people, and Habakkuk, and again, you got to think, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. Why aren't his people listening? And God, what are you going to do next? And Habakkuk's fear is exactly what's going to happen. God is going to judge the nation, and Habakkuk is pleading with God. And finally, he's got to resign himself. God, you know what's best. So, Habakkuk chapter 1. The burden which the prophet Habakkuk saw. Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? Even cry out to you of violence, and you will not save. Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see trouble? For plundering and violence are before me. There is strife, contention arises, therefore the law is powerless. Justice never goes forth, the wicked surround the righteous, therefore perverse judgment proceeds, almost like a commentary of today. Okay? Look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded. For I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. For indeed, I am raising up Chaldeans, bitter, hasty nation which march through the breadth of the earth, to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment, their dignity proceed from themselves. Their horses also are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their chargers charge ahead, their cavalry comes from afar. They fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. They all come for violence. Their faces are set like the east wind. They gather captives like sand. They scoff at kings. Princes are scorned by them. They deride every stronghold, for they heap up mounds of earth and seize it. Then his mind changes and he transgresses. He commits offense, imputing his power to his God. That's almost a complete description of what's going on today. Complete. Are you not from everlasting? O Lord my God, my Holy One, we shall not die. O Lord, you have appointed them for judgment. O Rock, you have marked them for correction. You are of purer eyes than to behold evil, and cannot look on wickedness. Why do you look on those who deal treacherously, and hold your tongue when the wicked devours one more righteous than he? Why do you make men like fish of the sea, like creeping things that have no ruler over them? I understand that. Habakkuk doesn't understand. God, how can you sit there in heaven? This is what people, why doesn't God do something? It's exactly what Habakkuk's saying. Why don't you do something? They take up all of them with a hook. They catch them in their net, gather them in their dragnet. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice to their net, burn incense to their dragnet, because by them their share is sumptuous, their food plenteous. Shall they therefore empty their net and continue to slay nations without pity? And it's Habakkuk, Lord. It's like he's telling God, don't you see what's going on here? Can't you do something? And then, I think everybody asks the same question today. Every time there's a mass murder, where's God? It's that familiar question, why don't you do something? And really what God said, because you won't let me.
They want God to do something, but yet they don't believe him.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? We want God to intervene, we just don't really want to believe in him, except when a tragedy hits. Well, if you're there, do something. And we don't want to serve him, and God's, what is God thinking in a generation like ours? When we blame everything on him, but we don't want to serve him, and God's up there going, what do you mean? I try to help you, but you refuse to listen to me. So, and that's the whole point. It's like prayer. I hear somebody, well, God hears every prayer you pray. No, he doesn't. That's not scriptural. God does not hear every prayer you pray. There's that thing called repentance. And God is not obligated to hear my prayers, because sin becomes this block. Why doesn't God hear my prayers? Well, you're not living for him. If you are sincere, God will hear you. But insincerity, no. And this is where most people are, I'm ready to die. Okay, God, I'm going to serve the rest of my life. Just heal me. You've heard the story. Somebody gets healed, and I guess it would have happened anyway. So they go on living their lives. And we've got to give God credit. He's very patient with us.
Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't for his patience and mercy, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, yeah.
Really, if you think about it. I wouldn't. You guys maybe, but not me. Chapter 2. Okay, I will stand my watch, set myself on the rampart, watch to see what he will say to me, and what I will answer when I am reproved. Now, he already knows what's going on here. I know he's going to come back at me. I know he's going to disagree with me, but I'm going to sit here and wait anyway. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it, for the vision is yet for an appointed time. Okay, a little later on. But at the end it will speak, and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will come. I will not tarry. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Familiar scripture, okay? The just shall live. This is what set Martin Luther on fire. The just shall live by faith. Indeed, because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, does not stay at home, because he enlarges his desire as hell. He is like death and cannot be satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations, heaps up for himself all peoples. Shall not all these take up a proverb against him, and a taunting riddle against him, and say, woe to him who increases? What is not his? How long? To him who loads himself with many pledges. Will not your creditors rise up suddenly? Will they not awaken to oppress you? And you will become their booty, because you have plundered many nations. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you, because of men's blood, and the violence of the land and the city, and all who dwell in it. Woe to him who covets evil gain for his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of disaster. You gave shameful counsel to your house, cutting off many people, and sinned against your soul. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the timbers will answer it. Woe to him who builds a town with bloodshed, who establishes a city by iniquity. Behold, is it not the Lord of hosts, that the people labor to feed the fire, and nations worry themselves in vain? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. There's a song chorus written like that. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbor, pressing him to your bottle, even to make him drunk, that you may look on his nakedness, and you are filled with shame instead of glory. You also drink. Be exposed as uncircumcised. The cup of the Lord's right hand will be turned against you, and utter shame will be on your glory. For the violence done in Lebanon will cover you, and the plunder of the beast which make them afraid because of men's blood, and the violence of the land and the city and all who dwell in it. What profit is the image, that its maker should carve it? The molten image, a teacher of lies, that the maker of its mold should trust in it to make mute idols. Woe to him who says to the wood, awake! To silent stone, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. You know, it begins by talking about those who take advantage of others to make a gain. You know, if your only goal in life is to get rich on the backs of others, God says, I'm going to judge you. You know, and then he goes on from there into the idolatry. Bunch of idiots, you know. You make a molten image and you tell it to speak, and you expect it to talk to you? And you say, arise, awake, awake. And God says, you're idiots. Oh, okay. It's like there's no breath in it, but the Lord is in a holy temple, and the earth will keep silence before him. In other words, basically God's saying, shut up. Shut up. Okay, you're driving me up a wall. Chapter 3. The prayer of Habakkuk. Lord, I've heard your speech and was afraid. Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. Excuse me. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. He had rays flashing from his hand, and there his power was hidden. Before him went pestilence. Fever followed at his feet. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and startled the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills bowed. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. The curtains of the land of Midian trembled. O Lord, you were displeased with the rivers. Excuse me, that's a tickle in my throat. Was your anger against the rivers? Was your wrath against the sea? That you rode on your horses, your chariots of salvation? Your bow was made quite ready. Oaths were sworn over your arrows. You divided the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered its voice and lifted its hands on high. The sun and moon stood in their habitation. At the light of your arrows they went, at the shining of your glittering spear. You marched through the land in indignation. You trampled the nations in anger. You went forth for the salvation of your people, for salvation with your anointed. You struck the head of the house of the wicked by laying bare from foundations to neck. You thrust through with his own arrows the head of his villages. They came out like a whirlwind to scatter me. Their rejoicing was like feasting on the poor in secret. You walked through the sea with your horses, through the heap of great waters. When I heard, my body trembled. My lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered my bones. I trembled in myself that I might rest in the day of trouble. When he comes up to the people, he will invade them with his troops. Though the fig tree may not blossom, no fruit will be on the vines. Though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food. Though the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. He will make my feet like deer's feet. He will make me walk on high hills. And that ends that. So essentially, Habakkuk realizing the prophecies of God are going to come to pass. You can't run away from it. But notice in the midst of this, I see what you're doing. He says, remember mercy. It has to be done. There has to be punishment for sin. At the very end, very similar to Job. Even though everything's gone, got nothing left, I'm going to trust God. And that really is the bottom line for every one of us today. Even in today's climate where Christianity is frowned upon, especially if you're considered an evangelical. That's just a bad word today. The fact that you dare believe Scripture, that you believe in sin and this and that, and Christianity is being demeaned and pushed down, and so further it gets pushed down, there could be consequences to that. Just the fact that you say you're a Christian. It could be the time when you can't be hired because you're a Christian, or you can't go to this place because you're a Christian. I mean, it's happened in the past, and who's to say it won't happen yet? And yet, despite the fact, if we lose all, like Habakkuk said, and like Job says, those slay me. I'm not going to turn my back on him. God knows what's best. And in the end, again, one of my favorite stories is Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Yeah, they didn't deserve to be thrown in a fiery furnace, but their attitude. Fine, okay? God will deliver us either in the fire, then we go to heaven, or he'll take us out. Either way,
We good.
he did it. And that is the point. I was watching, several weeks ago, another movie on that. I love the way they portrayed it. As Nebuchadnezzar just is furious. What in the world's going down there? There's supposed to be only 3. Why are there only 4? And, the guards are killed and all this, and the guys walk out and they're just, there's no smell of smoke. They're not burned. They're not singed. And it's like, okay, God sometimes is going to do that. And he still does that. We don't hear about them in America, but especially overseas, a lot of our missionaries. I've had good missionary friends that have shared some just miraculous stories, from everything from the lions to being attacked to terrorists, and just for some reason just taking off and running away. A good friend of mine, who I went to Bible college with, and a good friend of mine, and while I was there, from South Africa, went back as a missionary, and he was abducted by terrorists. And put in the back of the car, driven out into wherever they were out there, and then suddenly they fled. And he got out, and they were nowhere around. And the stories about them seeing other armies around him, and the stories of other missionaries the same way, where lions would come out and suddenly lions would turn around and leave. And the miracles like that are down in South America, where I remember the one where the pastor was put on a chair with dynamite underneath him, and they blew him up. Then he walked out. And the officer in charge got saved. These are the stories. The news doesn't tell you about that, because they're biblical and they're reinforced that God does exist. And heaven forbid we admit God exists, That is the problem.
What about just the Iranian attack last week, where one injury occurred?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't that serious. Did you hear Iran's response? It was nothing. No, when Israel attacked them, it was
One
nothing.
shot.
It was just no big deal. And it's just the world downplays all these things, but you don't want to fight Israel. You don't want to. And if America does not continue to stand behind her, we're doomed. We're going down the tubes.
Well, we did send some money last week. So yesterday. So.
What was that?
We got, they signed an aid package last night. So
I wasn't know if it's completely gone through yet or not.
Yeah,
it did go through, because we got aid there. So okay,
Yeah.
at least we're
Not
continuing.
our border, but we'll help others.
And of course, Biden keeps telling that, you don't do anymore, don't do anymore. He said, wait,
Please don't.
Please.
Don't.
Yeah.
But
Don't tell me what to do.
I'm sorry. How arrogant are you?
Yeah.
If that's the United States, he's telling you that. Yeah, right. Get out of here.
Yeah, finally somebody, I think I mentioned it last week, posted on, I think it was Facebook, the whole map of the Middle East.
Come on, man.
And all these Arab nations, and right in the middle, little tiny speck of people, and somebody goes, why in the world are they concerned about the little speck of land anyway? What big deal is it? They own everything else. And the problem is,
evil versus good.
yeah, and the problem is this giant piece of land can't defeat that little speck. And I think when I was doing my traveling, doing my series on the Middle East, at that time, the government had figured out that Israel, man for man, had the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, because she couldn't be defeated. And it's like, really? That small of a country? And it's unique, to go over there, because over there it's a privilege to serve in the military, and they're everywhere carrying guns. everywhere you walk. I mean, and they're the nicest people, but very secure. And so yeah, it's interesting what's going on in the world. So that's Nahum, that's Habakkuk.